This piece is called Out My Window. When I was a child, I spent a lot of time daydreaming. I grew up in a high-rise off of Lake Michigan. So I'd look out, look at Lake Michigan, and I'd daydream. Sometimes I'd fantasize about unicorns and other things children thought of. But I also dreamed about my birth father. You see, I never knew him growing up. He wasn't there when I was born. He wasn't there when I was growing up. And in preschool, in kindergarten, I would get questioned. Where's your dad? Why isn't he here at pickup? I never see him. Do you have a dad? And I didn't know what to say. When they asked, where is he? I didn't know. The only thing I knew was that he was from Nigeria. I knew his name. I didn't know if he lived there or if he was in Chicago. It's a city of 1 million people, so he could be here, and I just didn't know it. And I would also get questions from adults, too, because my mom, she's white, and in the late 80s and early 90s, it was weird still to see a Caucasian woman with a biracial child. They would ask, is that your real mother? Yes. Yes, she is. Well, what are you? Are you Mexican? Puerto Rican? What are you? I'm black and white. Are you sure you're black? Yes. It was very hard, and it was very strange. And so when I would go home, I would spend a lot of time looking out my window, and I'd imagine what it would be like if my birth father was in my life. Then I wouldn't have the questions. He'd show up to school. They'd see him. Oh, that makes sense. Mix white with black, you get brown. Okay, I get it. I also, was lonely at times. My single mom, no other kids, so I would dream, hey, maybe if I knew my birth father, he would have other kids, and then I could play with them. I didn't want younger siblings. I knew right away that they would steal my toys and break them. No. That could not be. And then when I had a bully in kindergarten, I realized an older brother, that's what I needed. An older brother would meet that bully after school, and I'd never have a bully problem again. Yeah, so I would think about that older brother and what we could do together. He would take me on adventures when my mom was tired, and hang out with his friends, see movies, all these wonderful things, I thought. And then around the 3rd grade, I started talking to friends of mine, girlfriends who had older brothers, and they told me there were some downsides to the older brother thing. They said that they didn't really like hanging out with younger sisters, like I thought, and that older brothers would tell on you to their parents. So I thought, okay, maybe an older brother wouldn't be best. But I know what, an older sister, that would be ideal. They told me that older sisters and younger sisters, they just had a sister code. So you couldn't tattle on your sister. You kept their secrets. And more often than not, you could borrow their clothes or their shoes, so that was fun as well. I thought, okay, older sister, that would be ideal. And so I spent the next several years daydreaming out my window about an older sister. Older sister could take care of the bully problem. I knew that. And then, yeah, we could go on adventures too. We'd go on trips, go to the movies, laugh. It'd be wonderful. But then when I started high school, I realized that would never happen. I was now becoming an adult, so there was no chance my birth father would show up now. I didn't need him. Not that I ever really needed him. My mom was plenty dad enough. But it would have been nice So I stopped thinking about him altogether. And then the summer before my senior year of high school, I was traveling with my mom visiting colleges. And on the way back, she told me that my birth father's sister had reached out. She wanted us all to meet. I was shocked. Why now? Was it because I'm about to turn 18? But what does he want to know? I'm fine. I've been fine. I thought this all in my head, and I didn't say anything for a long time, so my mom filled in the space. She said, you know, if you have any questions, now's the time. It took this long to get a phone call. I don't know if we'll get another one. So I said, okay, I can't disagree with that logic, and I do have questions. And so the next day we headed to meet my birth father and my aunt. I tried on a million different outfits and finally settled on my favorite one, and I thought, oh, I look good. My hair is perfect. I'm ready. Got in the car, I started getting nervous, got to the elevator, and I realized, how did we get here so fast? I thought it would take forever to get to my aunt's building, but it was only 2.9 miles. We got upstairs, went to the door. I couldn't bring myself to knock, so my mom did. The woman opened the door. I looked at her, and I realized she looked familiar. She looked like me, but decades older. She welcomed us in. She gave me a hug. It was warm and strong. And then she gestured to the man behind her. He didn't look familiar at all. But he came up anyway, and she introduced him as my father. He said hello. He gave me a hug, one arm, then the other. Felt kind of awkward. And then he whispered, I love you. I recoiled inside. I didn't say anything, but I thought, how can you possibly love me? We just met. We're strangers. How can you love someone that you've been absent from their whole life? The rest of the meeting, there wasn't much to say. I didn't feel like I could ask the questions that were, hard to ask at that time. I just got to know him a tiny bit and found out that I did have other siblings. I had younger ones, older one. It's like, wow, okay. And then I went home with my mom. That day I looked out the window and I thought, wow, it finally happened. I met him. And I wondered when we'd see each other again. The next day I thought the same thing, and the next. For weeks, and then finally my aunt called and said, let's have another meeting, let's go to dinner. So I went. Over the next year, I saw him a handful of times, and every time was awkward. But I tried anyway. And then my aunt said, how about meeting your older sister? I said, oh yes, I always wanted one of those. Sure, yeah. My younger siblings, I didn't get to really meet. My birth father never introduced us properly. I never got invited over to their house. But my older sister was an adult. So she arranged the meeting. I went again to her house, went upstairs, looked out the window at the lake, and I waited. Finally, my sister arrived, knocked on the door, came inside. I turned around, I looked at her. I did see familiarity in her eyes and her smile. She looked at me blankly. She had no idea who I was. And then my aunt pulled her aside and told her. I looked back at the lake, nervous, waiting, wondering what her reaction would be. She came up to me pretty quickly, and she said, I've always wanted a sister, and she hugged me firmly. And I thought, wow, I did too. We talked for hours, and I was so amazed about the similarities. our career paths, what we liked, the things we like to do, like going out dancing. We even had the same shoe size. And then it was over. It was time to go home. It was late. We hugged and said we'd keep in touch. Got in the car with my mom on the ride home. I got a text saying, "It was great meeting you. I hope you get home safe." It's from my sister. I smiled. And I thought, well, I didn't even get to get home to look out my window to wait, so this is different. And indeed it was. Over the past 20 years, we have worked on our relationship. We've grown so much. We've fought a million times, and through it all, we've laughed and cried and had so much joy. And all the things that I dreamed of when I was younger, we've done. We've gone on the trips. We've gone shopping. We fought over shoes at DSW. And it's been great. And I'm able to look out my window and not look out with longing of what could have been. And I'm able to look out with the possibilities of what will be, the things that I will be doing with my sister. Because I know that when we talk, we'll make our plans and we'll do them. And I won't have to wait at my window.